that really took a toll on me, man. And again, I'm really active. I just didn't have places to be or people to hang around with to be active. And I just kind of fell into the downward spiral, right?
The more people you talk to, the more used you're going to get to doing it, the less scared you're going to be. So then you can finally go talk to that pretty girl, or you can go talk to that big business owner, or you can go talk to that big investor.
That's what happened with me, at least. Like, I went from a corporate job to a remote job. So I never really had like true relationships in my life that were formed on a bond of a common goal. So that's really what happened with me, and a lot of people suffer from the same thing. But it's about recognizing it and then fixing it. So
Even if I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going in with 110% confidence because they're really making it okay for you to not face your problems. Confidence is key in
100%.
almost everything in life, but definitely in sales.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? This is the Overloaded Podcast. My name is Brandon Nobe, your host. We've got Ian Landry in the house and Kyler Dorsey, and we've got an awesome guest for you today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, my man.
what's going on, everybody? My name's David Diaz. I'm based out of Philadelphia, and I'm here showing love with my guys, man. It's been fun, and yeah, we're here doing it.
Yeah, Dave, so let's get into it, man. So what do you do? What do you do?
That's a good question, man. So my day job, right? My 9 to 5, I'm in finance. But what I'm starting to notice, the hours between 5 and 10, even 11 p.m. now, is really where the work is coming into play. So after hours, after my day job, I am a coach, right? I'm doing a lot of courses now. I'm getting into the coaching side of things. And I teach guys the importance of having a social circle and what that does for your life. So it's in the
And don't,
beginning processes, but it's growing.
and don't you do a little bit with style as well?
Yeah, man. So that's what a lot of people know me for.
Mhm.
Um, coming up, everybody's like, "Yo, where do you get this at? Where you got that at? Can you help me out with the shopping?" And of course, I always help the guys out with getting their style right and the importance of going into a room and looking a little bit different than you know, uh, the everyday person. So
So what made you want to start coaching and help people build their circles?
yeah, man, that's so. This kind of fell on my lap, right? I got into a position at my job where I'm working remotely, right? And working remote, what I started to notice and what I even felt for myself is I felt a sense of loneliness. And to be honest, I'm one of the most active guys I've ever met in my life. Like me personally, I'm
Wow.
always doing something. And if I felt loneliness or if I dealt with loneliness myself, I know the average person is dealing with it on a 10x scale than I'm dealing with it. So I got tapped in with a group called the Standard, right? And they kind of opened my horizons as to what's really possible. And I want to make sure that the things that I'm receiving from being a part of this group and the things that I've curated in my life as far as a social circle standpoint, I want to make sure that everybody else that I'm around is receiving those same benefits that I have as well. So that was the main motivation was, hey, look, if I'm feeling loneliness, then I know that average person is dealing with it on a 10x level than I am, and I want to make sure that nobody's dealing with that.
That's awesome. So how many people do you have in it currently?
So I just yeah, I had a conversation with you maybe 3 weeks ago. You gave me a
Yeah.
lot of game, and from there I have 3 clients, and I have two in the works that are thinking about joining. So
So I'd love to know the process though. So when you start to grow someone's social circle, how do you tell them to start that?
that's a good question, man. So I break their life into categories, right? Health, wealth, hobbies, and habits. And if you look at the things that this individual does on a daily basis and compare that to the person that they want to be or the person that they want to get connected to, we'll look at health, for example, right? Let's say this person does like to go to the gym. The key is putting yourself in proximity to the people that you want to connect with, right? Proximity is $1 billion principle. I talk about it all the time. So if you take the Planet Fitness model and the level of commitment from the people that are working out at Planet Fitness, again, no knock to Planet Fitness. I think they have a good business model, but If you look at Planet Fitness, the cost of entry is $10. But if you look at the cost of entry to an Equinox, right, that might be a two or three, $400 membership. Yes, it does cost to put yourself in environments, but being in that proximity to those people, you're going to be surrounded by a higher level individual to the person that you eventually want to become and that you want to connect with. So the same conversations that you have at Planet Fitness are going to be the same conversations that you have at Equinox, but look at the ROI, right? The return on investment from that connection. It's going to be a lot greater at Equinox than it is would be at Planet Fitness.
Yeah, we have a gym over here in town called Reds. Have you heard of Red Laurel's?
Nah, man.
It's
I'll
a
go
it's a
to Louisiana
bodybuilding. You have to come back. It's pretty fun. But there's a gym called Reds, and it's this old bodybuilder named Red Laurel. And I forget who was telling me this concept. It was when I was working for Vivint. You know what Vivint is, like the home security system. I was selling for Vivint, going door to door, and the guy my manager, used to talk about, don't work out at Planet Fitness, don't work out at, and no knock to them as well. Don't work out at a lower quality gym. Go to Reds where you can meet new people, people who are affluent in the area. They all go there. It's like a hangout for people who have done well in their life. So I completely understand the topic.
Y'all gonna make me go get rid of my Planet Fitness membership.
Nah, but you can break that. That's just for that specific person, right? Let's say you can do it at a coffee shop instead of going to your local, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. Go to the one where the quote unquote cool kids are at, or the guys that you want to meet at, or go to the hotel lobbies where they're serving the nicer coffee. You're gonna eventually rub shoulders with some of the people that you want to connect with anyhow. I just use the Planet Fitness as everybody knows what it is.
So when you say open your horizons, I know you said something about the standard. What did the standard specifically do to open your eyes to want to do this?
Yeah, so it became evident when I went to an experience in Phoenix, right? And I'm rubbing shoulders with some of the guys that, I'm not talking. I don't want to use the word. High earners or high value individuals because everybody's kind of growing at their own pace. So I don't want to really use that word, but I'm looking at guys who are killing it in their chosen field, right? Let's say you got a guy in sales. This guy's making a killing at sales. So the person who's making a killing in sales, they might need help spiritually, right? They're not as close to that spiritual side of themselves, whereas there is another gentleman in the group who's killing it spiritually, but he might need help in finances. So the two are being connected, and what's happening is as a group, everybody is growing, and that's kind of what I experienced for myself, where I was killing it in my chosen field, but the people that I was hanging around with weren't the type of people I wanted to be around. So for me, I had to go all the way to Phoenix just to find those individuals. And I was like, look, I need to curate this in my real life, in my social life, in proximity to the environments that I hang around. So I took that same mentality and I put it in Philadelphia.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like you said, going back to Planet Fitness, you want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Joe said, your network is your net worth. So you got to surround yourself. You have to, like you said, you don't want to use a bad word, but you want to surround yourself with high potential people or high potential earners or just high potential period in their field. You want to surround yourself with those type of people.
Yeah, the people's disciplines, man. Whatever you guys are doing as your discipline, I want to be surrounded by the best. That was something my father always told me growing up, right? If you're going to do something, become the best at it. And that's pretty much that same mentality I've had in everything I've done in sales and just building a social circle to the people I hang around. I want the best of the best.
Ian, I kind of want to know from your perspective, what opened your eyes to want to grow your network and your net worth totally as well?
Honestly, it was my father, kind of like Dave. My father's done a lot of different things in business, but I've always seen the people he's hung around or worked his way in his network to get around. I forget who said this quote, but, show me your 10 friends, I'll show you exactly where you're going to be. That was kind of the concept he taught me early on. I've talked about this in the past. if you do what others are not willing to do, today I will do what others won't, so tomorrow I can do what others can't. That quote was pasted on my door every single day. So you'd always come in and be like, hey, today you're going to do something that you haven't done before. Go figure it out, whatever it is. Go meet somebody new. So I was always that kid at a young age that tried to make as many friends as possible. It was masking things back then. But now I look at it and it just taught me how to talk. It taught me how to make connections. It taught me how to relate to people. Then it just started translating into, okay, how can I make this networking connection benefit me? And I don't want to say benefit me because that's kind of negative, but it's benefiting what I do. If I can help enough people get what they want, I get what I want. If you come from that mindset of networking in that angle, you really can grow it however you need to. It's just like that in social media. It's just like it's the genuine connection side of it. That's really what I do in that aspect. I don't really do anything, I would say, out of the ordinary. I just, I research a lot how to build genuine connections. Sounds kind of out there, but if you actually look at the psychology behind it, of look, what is a genuine connection? A genuine connection is technically a bond. It's a bond between you and somebody else. If it's for a business, how does that bond benefit the other person? If it's for helping them in lifestyle, helping them in what they do, like Dave, he does it because he enjoys the heck out of it. I could see when he talks about it, he starts smiling. So it's how can you help other people get to where they're comfortable in themselves, and then you can see it radiating off them.
So Dave, for the people listening out there, who are lonely, that, don't know what to do, what would be the first plan of action you'd give them, to really start putting themselves in these positions?
Yeah, I would compare yourself to where you're at today versus who you want to become. And it sounds kind of shallow, but I think that's really what it comes down to. So if you take for me, right, I took my uniqueness and I compared who I was 10 years ago versus who I am today. And that's how I was able to find my uniqueness. I was that shy, lonely kid. I was that, that geek in high school that, the bully was pushing the books down. I dealt
Same.
with all of that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
now if you look at my life, the cool kids aren't as cool as me now.
The
So
script has been flipped.
yeah, the script has been flipped. So um, I've been in that person's shoes, right? And these are skills that you can learn, and it just starts by realizing that you can learn it. It's not something that doesn't have a natural born gift, because it's not. You can take who you are, elevate yourself over the next 2, 3, 4 years. My goal is to make sure that this happens for people inside 6 months. To your point, right? You show me the top 10 friends, I'll show you your future. The reality of it, a lot of people don't even have 10 friends to tap into, right? And that's sad. So I want to make sure that, one, you are having friendships, long-standing relationships with people, but these are people of quality, right? I don't want you to talk to anybody and everybody. I want this to be a purposeful, driven mission, right? To go ahead and have a target of who you want to be and who you want to hang around, and go after it. So one is realizing that, hey, look, this is a skill that I can actually learn. Two is breaking your life into categories: health, wealth, and habits and hobbies. Compare yourself to where you're hanging out, and then target them, and then maintain those relationships, right? That's a lot of people forget that. That's the number one rule in sales, is follow up. People aren't going to take the leadership role. You have to become the leader, and it gives you a little bit of social equity too when you become the leader in the group, right? But if you're making the conscious effort, like, hey, look, I got this event coming out, or hey, you let's catch this workout in, let's grab a coffee together, come to this event, go to that thing, let's do stuff together. You have to be the driving force behind it to make it happen.
You've heard the concept of 10X, huh? Grant Cardone and all that. Have you heard the concept of turning your year into 2 years? I forget what book it was in. So this is a cool concept, and it kind of goes along the lines of, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if you look at your day as a 6-hour workday, so from 6 a.m. to 12 o'clock, that's 6 hours. That's one day. You can get as much work as you can done in the first 6 hours. You pretty much accomplish everything that you need. If you focus on a task for 6 hours and accomplish it, then it's done. The next 6 hours, from 1 to 7 or 12 to 6, whatever your time frame is, that's really your second part of your day. And if you do that every single day for a year, you pretty much turn 1 year into 2 years. It's the same idea with networking. If you can put yourself into different social circles, doing it 10 times a day, 20 times a day, it starts compounding. The more you can get uncomfortable with something, the better you get at it. So like, when I tell people, kind of like Dave does, about how to talk to people, how to network with someone, it's go put yourself in situations where you've never been in. Go to the new gym and meet 15 people. It might not be the best connection of your life in the first day, but over time, it's going to mold into something.
And, Ian kind of stole my line. That's what I was about to say before he started talking. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to succeed, and just like the standard, like I haven't been to an event yet. I'm not intimidated because I'm not intimidated by anybody, but I think it's going to be different for me to jump in a room with, 30 to 50 high level men. That's a different experience. But I can't wait to do it. And I think I'm going to sign up for the Atlanta one coming soon. But
So
bringing it
yeah,
back, what'd you say?
I'm sorry.
I was going to
No,
say
I
bringing
just
it.
got.
Go
Hey,
ahead, brother.
this is my first podcast, bro. I'm sorry. No, but exactly to your point, right? To what you guys are talking about, there's such a thing called, an upward spiral, right? And for me, I always say start with low low cost of entry place like environments. So if you really want to start connecting with people, go to your favorite restaurant, right? Whatever it is, it could be anything. Obviously, I'm love Mexican food, so I go to the same Mexican restaurant 10 days a week, bro. That don't even make sense mathematically. But I always meet the host, right? And I build a relationship with the host and the bartenders. The reason being is because one, that's their job is to talk with people, right? They want to make sure it's a welcoming environment. So those are the easiest people for you to talk to. So talk with them, right? They are professionals at this. They're pretty much professional counselors. So they love to talk and love to get things out of you. So go to that environment, and what's going to happen is you're going to go there 2, 3, 4 times a week, or however many times. Now you have a little bit of a relationship with them. So every time you go, it's an easy pivot. From that bartender, guess what's going to happen next? They're going to introduce you to the manager. The manager is going to start recognizing you because you're talking to their staff, 10 days a week. From there, what's going to happen after the manager? You might have a chance to meet the owner of the restaurant. From the owner of the restaurant, you might meet the chef of the restaurant. From the chef of the restaurant, you might meet the investor of the restaurant. So it starts low and then it always ends up high. To your point, right? The first 5 to 15 contacts that you might make at the gym, they might not amount to anything. But it's about plugging away and keep going and keep going after it, because you don't know who knows somebody, right? You're the famous saying is you're one contact away from your life being changed. And that's the
I love
mentality
that.
that you have to go into every situation.
That's a good point. When I played baseball, so I played college baseball for a while, our coaches always used to tell us, and I relate sports and fitness and business all into one category because it really is. They used to tell us, you never know who's watching. You might have a good conversation and you might overhear something, or somebody else might overhear you. For example, I was on a boat in Dallas. And I love telling the story. They're like, how the heck did it happen? So I was on a boat in Dallas, and it was for my cousin's birthday, and we just went, I forget what lake it was. We went out there, and then we ended up finding this floaty that was in the middle of the water. I went to go swim and get it, brought it back. It was a freaking unicorn. It was a huge unicorn. I was just jumping around, flipping off of it, doing stuff. But this other boat came up and said, hey, you found our floaty. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So I gave it to them, and then they latched up to our boat. And then we just started meeting people. Well, later on, probably about 30 minutes into it, I'm talking to one of their friends, and I start talking about like API connections, like which, when you link up a website, it's different things you can do to get them to talk to each other. And this other guy overheard me, and he goes, what do you know about APIs? I know a little bit, and I do a little bit of marketing, blah, blah, blah. I kind of do my little spiel. And he goes, well, this company I'm having is having a problem. I was like, okay. So I started drawing that information. He's like, we're having a bunch of shipping, distribution problems. We're trying to figure out how to put different products in. So I get to the end of the conversation. The guy had a different branch of Coca-Cola. and I was talking to one of the managers of like a higher up manager in the Coca-Cola division for shipping inside of Dallas. He was like, "Hey, look, I would love to help." I said, "I would love to help, figure out your API problem." We started talking to him, and things progress in different ways. But like that was just from a boat.
You don't know where it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's a crazy concept, and I always like to tell people just go freaking do it. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter where. Restaurant's a great place to start.
Yeah, because the more people you talk to, the more used you're going to get to doing it, the less scared you're going to be. So then you can finally go talk to that pretty girl. You can go talk to that big business owner, or you can go talk to that big investor. But one thing I want to peel back to, Dave, is two questions you could answer. Why yourself did you fall into being lonely? And why do you think most people today around the world, and especially in America, fall into being lonely?
I mean, look at their environments, right? You got that 22-year-old kid who graduated graduated college, and they worked their I don't want to curse. They worked their butt off all the way through college to maintain a 3.8 GPA, right? So they make sacrifices, which are great sacrifices in their life, right? There's a quote that I love to recite, and it's, if you don't sacrifice for what you want becomes the sacrifice, right? So this guy, that 22-year-old kid, sacrificed his social life to maintain that 3.8 GPA. But at the end of it, he gets stuck at a corporate job. What's the corporate environment like? You have Karen beside you that's going to the same holiday party, and she's like three times your age, and she's knitting sweaters, and you're rubbing shoulders with her, right? Or you got the freelancer who's constantly in their house, and they're just plugging away, doing their thing. They're making a killing, but they don't have the environments to go out with. And little by little, if you don't practice and maintain um, social equity, you lose social equity. So for me, that's what happened with me, at least. Like, I went from a corporate job to a remote job, so I never really had like true relationships in my life that were formed on a bond of a common goal. So that really took a toll on me, man. And again, I'm really active. I just didn't have places to be or people to hang around with to be active, and I just kind of fell into the downward spiral, right? So that's really what happened with me, and a lot of people suffer from the same thing. But it's about recognizing it and then fixing it. So
So, what was the biggest roadblock then for you becoming Dave Diaz, the Dave Diaz today that is funny, that talks to everybody, that walks into any room, Like, how do you, for those people listening, I really want them to figure out they can become a Dave Diaz. So, what was your biggest roadblock?
man, that's a good question. The biggest roadblock was, the approach, right? Looking at the things that what's the worst thing that could happen versus comparing it to the best things that could happen. So if you look at any relationship and you say, hey, look, if we'll use the pretty girl as an example, the worst thing that can happen by going up to a pretty girl is she says no. There's actually something worse you can say. She said, no, get the hell away from me. That's the worst thing that can happen. But if you compare that to the best, absolute best possibility that could happen, which would be that, hey, I go and introduce myself. She likes me. Now we build a relationship. From the relationship, we get married. Then we get married. Then we have beautiful children together. Compare the absolute peak versus the absolute bottom. And then that's the direction you take. Fear is, success is on the other side of fear. It is a hard thing, right? It is a very difficult thing to realize and to get around. But if you go ahead and you just make those approaches based on the best versus worst, and then make your choices from there, I promise you, you'll 10x your results. But it's just realizing it and then obviously implementing it into your everyday life.
So, it's really just honestly just going out there and doing it.
Just go out there and do it.
And that's in life and anything in business. It ain't trying to get a girl in sports. You just got to go do it. You got to put the work in to be able to succeed.
Right. When the lights are on, go and perform.
I love that.
Dave, did you play any sports when you were in high school?
Yeah, I played basketball, man. I stopped at 5'9", so I never went to college.
You look like a shooter.
Yeah, I was a point guard throwing assists out there.
That's fun.
So yeah, man, I want to get into it. Let's talk about that Cancun experience. Tell me a little bit about that. I saw the YouTube videos, I saw the Instagram stories. It looked like a movie. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it was a movie, man. So imagine you got, all your favorite people in one area and then turning up together. Like just it was incredible, man. Obviously the partying, the yachts, the girls that were there, that's all good, fine and dandy. But man, the relationships that were bonded there, that were formed there, those relationships will last a lifetime. Every time I go to an experience, I've done two experiences, and then I've went to an end of the year conference. Every time I go, I'm chasing light bulbs, and every time I get a light bulb, man, I come back home and I feel like my life is 10x. Some of the things that were talked about, some of the relationships that I was able to take back home with me. For example, I met a guy that we're going to start doing uh, help out on his sales side because I do have a background in sales myself. So I'm gonna help him out on his sales side, and then we're just gonna start creating together, man. And that's one small example. Like I met another guy, Ricardo. He's on the finance end, and we're gonna figure out these finances side of the things too. So everybody's got a superpower down there, and it's just about collaborating.
You know, for the listeners that don't know what the standard is, go into what the standard actually is and then tell your story about how you found it and how you got into it.
Yeah, man. So I found it because to his point, right? I like style. So I fell into Joseph Hines' content before I fell into Ephesians content. And then fast forward like 2 or 3 weeks later, I found Ephesians content, and these are like the two main people I watch on YouTube. And then 3 weeks after that, I found out that they're creating a business together. I was like, oh, this couldn't have drawn out any better. So pretty much the standard for me is a private network where you can tap into at any city throughout the United States, both digitally and in reality. And they put on high level experiences, seminars, and speaking engagements for you to tap into um, anywhere in the United States and internationally now. So I just got back from Cancun on Monday. Before that, it was Phoenix. Know they held one in New York City. They're holding another one in Atlanta come May. So I'll tell you what, if you guys have any interest on leveling up your life, this was my foundation, and it's been nothing but growth.
Dude, that's so awesome. And I haven't been to an experience yet, but I'm looking at that Atlanta experience. I'm eyeing it. And I think I'm gonna have to hit Joe up soon to do it. But man,
Yeah,
talk about the importance of actually, dressing. I mean, dressing to actually impress people. Because I know Jeff Bezos, and I've said this before, he's made it to where he can wear a white t-shirt and cargo shorts. You know,
yeah,
he's at that level. He has $1 billion. But how important is it to actually be styled and dressed to impress people when you're going out and trying to
yeah,
make
man.
business connections?
1,000%, right? So you have that guy like Jeff Bezos who does wear a white T-shirt, but at the end of the day, that everyday person, if you want to make a statement, right, you have to dress up and putting yourself in a nice suit or going out and changing your paradigm shifts and coming out with a nice suit and a nice car. It's about congruency, man. So if I've always said, or not I've always said, but I've recently learned through Joseph Hines and Hafiz that it's all about congruency, right? You can't have um, a beautiful suit but wear crappy shoes, or vice versa. So being congruent in your life, in your everyday life, if you're a well speaker, you might as well be a well dressed, a nice dressed man. If you're a nice dressed man, you might as well drive a nice little decent car. It doesn't have to be a supercar, but you want to make sure that everything is congruent in your life that matches up with the things that you actually want out of life. And it starts with your appearance, right? I think um, the way that people perceive me, it's very important based on the way that I dress, and I want to make sure my first impression is a lasting impression. If you look at the top salespeople, right, they have already sold whatever it is that they're selling based on how they appear. That's their first impression. if you take the top salesman in the county or in the country and look at the way that they are dressed versus the the everyday average person, they're probably in a baggy suit or in ripped jeans or crappy sneakers or crappy dress shoes or a suit that looks like from the 2005 NBA draft. It's a night and day difference, right? It's a night and day difference from the level of performance that they're getting at. And I've always said, if you look good, you feel good. You feel good, you perform good. And I think he touched on it on a snippet that just dropped recently, and I heard all about it. It's the same concept.
100%. From the other side, Ian, I know sometimes when we talk about dressing nice, you're like, oh man, I'm just going to wear a t-shirt, my chain, and a hat. So arguing from the other side, tell me a little bit about how you feel about, style incorporated into business and making statements.
Glad you asked.
Yeah.
Because I do have a counter opinion. Nothing against what you're saying, Dave. I completely agree with what you're saying. There's a few gurus out there. What's his name? Dean Graziosi. Dean Graziosi wears the same white shirt, the same black pants at every single speaking event. He has 10 of the same white shirts and 10 of the same black pants and some of the same shoes. The concept behind it, and I dress a little bit differently than most. I dress kind of, I've always been athletic aware. Like this is a Vori shirt. It's a like an Athletica brand, but it's comfortable. It looks kind of up there, but my view on it is incongruency. Be who you are in your life. If you have the car, if you have, a certain style, don't tread from it. Having the suit, having the shoes that match, having the watch that goes with it, having the I wear a cross necklace, a chain that goes with it. It does create a congruency. And the idea of Dean Graziosi wearing the same white shirt, the same black pants, he's still congruent. So if and you expect from me that I'm not going to dress like normal, it's congruent with my current lifestyle. It's congruent how I think. I think that, I come up and be that guy that just can have a personal connection with you. You don't have to look at me as a suit and tie, but you can look at me as like I don't want to say bro because I'm in the business world, but you can look at me as you can look at me as like a bro. Like, look, I can see his knowledge and I can see his expertise. But if you can relate to me inside of the, and how I dress, I try to dress to relate to people, not dress to impress. My opinion is a little bit different. I don't always dress in a hat and a shirt. I do dress in like a suit sometimes, or I wear like nice shoes, nice shirt. It depends on the day. If I'm going to a sales meeting, always dress to impress. If it's an everyday, we're talking in between the office. I know I don't have any specific meetings. I'll dress casual, just so y'all know that I'm down to earth. I can meet y'all where you're at.
So do you agree, though, for someone starting out, listening that doesn't have the confidence that we do yet or don't talk to a lot of people, do you agree that they should go that route first of
100%.
dressing nice to get there, and then they can create their own congruency when they get to that position
Yes,
of being comfortable?
I do agree with that. Now, I do have a counterpoint.
Okay.
You don't have to spend the money. There's tons of ways, and I saw Dave react in the background. There's tons of ways to dress for cheap and look dope. Like there's a lot of good ways to get style. Like this is a crazy
Shout
opinion.
out to Target.
Yeah,
Shout out to Target, no
Target
doubt.
has some sick clothes.
Shout out to Goodfellow, by the way. Goodfellow fits good and it looks good on
It's
it.
$5.
It's
I
$5.
bought a shirt for $5 the other day, and I say the other day, I probably bought like 50 shirts for $5, but that's not my only style. Like you can shop for cheap and still have a good style. Like Dave, what do you think about shopping on the lower
Man.
end?
I love it. I love that you brought that up because that is so true, right? You can go to Target. All my T-shirts, for the most part, are Goodfellow T-shirts, man. There's nowhere you can get a nice quality T-shirt for $5-6 these days. And the nice thing about it is that it fits properly. That's the side of it, right? You can get away with buying quote unquote cheap clothing as long as it fits properly. I love the H&Ms. I love the Zaras because they provide a product that, yeah, it might not be of quality like some of your higher end brands, but they fit properly, right? You don't have to go out and buy a $1,000 suit. You can go to Zara and buy $100 suit, and it fits and looks as if it was, $1,000 suit. So there's different ways and techniques to get around it. You just have to know your style, your body type, and make sure that it fits properly. And you can do that with a tailor.
I'm so glad. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so glad you brought up Zara. Dude, I bought shoes that looked like Jordans that were $20. And they were like they were literally Zara. I forget who does Zara. What brand is that? Is that who releases their content? Maybe it's Urban Outfitters or something like that. Dude, they got some good stuff inside of Zara.
They do, man, and it fits. It just needs to fit. That's it.
Well, yeah, Dave, look, we're just about out of time, but before we wrap it up, man, go ahead and shout out your socials and anything you want to let anybody know so they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, man. Again, my name is David Diaz. You can hit me on IG. My handle is Dave Diaz Jr. So Dave Diaz Jr. You can catch me there. I'm always posting, doing my thing. So, and if you want to tap in, hit me on the DMs, and we'll get you tapped in.
100%. We thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Again, that's Dave Diaz. My name is Brandon Obey. That's Kyler Dorsey and Ian Landry. This is the Overloaded Podcast, and we're out. Peace.